Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back to another live stream. Thought we'd do a little keep, sell and loan video today. A couple of people have been asking for one for the last few seasons really, and I've never ever done one, but I thought as part of our sort of our season review segments, I thought, you know what, let's sit down, let's have a little look at Everton's squad list for next season, and let's go through which players I think Everton should keep, which players I think Everton should sell, and which players I think Everton should loan out. Now, obviously, we did the rating every Everton player's season in 3 words or less on Monday, so I hope you all did enjoy that video. Big thanks for all of the support on that one. So I just thought, you know what, yeah, we'll do another little segment to the season review by going through the squad list and, as I said, picking out which players I think Everton should prepare for next season in terms of having them in the squad, and which players I think Everton should be phoning around to try and move away from the football club, to put it nicely. Anyway, I've had a little look at our squad list for next season, and it is how I can only describe fucking terrifying at this current moment. Now, obviously, the transfer window hasn't opened, and I'm sure, hopeful maybe is more the word than sure, that the squad will of course have additions to it before the end of that transfer window. I say hopeful because I was pretty sure that Everton would sign some players last January because we were in such a bad position, and we didn't. So I can't sit here and say I'm absolutely certain that Everton will make signings this summer, but I'm fairly confident that they will. So obviously this squad list isn't the final squad list that Everton will be going into the new season with, but it just is the squad as things stand now. It doesn't include players like Yerry Mina and Connor Cody and Asmir Begovic, who of course have left the football club. So, yeah, it's basically everybody else that is left, including the players that have returned from their loan spells, obviously, last season. So, yeah, let's get straight into it. Without further ado, we'll start with Jordan Pickford. He, of course, has just recently signed a new contract, and this one for me is absolutely easy as anything. Keep all day long. Now, there is a conversation to be had about Jordan Pickford in a sense of that, you know, what if Everton were to receive a stupidly high bid from, you know, I don't know, a Tottenham Hotspur who should be looking for a goalkeeper this summer because Hugo Lloris is absolutely dreadful, or Manchester United, who probably should be looking for a goalkeeper this summer because David De Gea isn't very good either, despite the fact he's just won the Golden Glove. He's constantly making mistakes, or various other teams that may or may not be looking for goalkeepers this summer that could offer Everton, you know, upwards of maybe 50-60 million pounds, which is probably what Everton would look at for Jordan Pickford. And you know, there is of course a conversation to be had is can Everton really afford to turn that type of money down? Now, you know, we sat here when we done the seasonal player ratings, and I spoke about Amadou Onana and how, for me, Amadou Onana just simply isn't a £60 million player at the moment. So if Everton were to receive £60 million for him, it would be silly for us to turn that down, not only because we could use that money to invest it elsewhere, but also because, as I said, you know, he may well in the next 2, 3, 4 years go on and be a £60-70 million player, but as of this moment he isn't that. And also the reality is if you were to offer Everton £60 million for Amadou Onana, let's say, would Amadou Onana be guaranteed to have the same impact that £60 million worth of players could have on Everton next season? I don't think he would. I think spending that money going out and buying a striker, going out and buying a creative player, going out and buying another centre-back, will see Everton in a better position than what it would if we didn't have any of those and we kept Amadou Onana. Now, I'm just using him as an example, of course, because he's been touted with a big move away a couple of times. Jordan Pickford, it's much more difficult to have that conversation about because, you know, we sat here when we done the seasonal player ratings, and I, as I always am, was very complimentary of Jordan Pickford, and the reason for that is because I genuinely think that without Jordan Pickford, Everton would have not only been relegated this past season, but we'd have already been playing Championship football this past season, because we'd have been relegated the season before without Jordan Pickford, without a shadow of a doubt. He stepped up in some absolutely massive moments over the last 2 seasons, made some huge saves in big games to keep us in games, to win us games, games, to get us something out of games. And, ultimately Everton have stayed up by a couple of points the last 2 seasons on the bounce. I think it might have even been 1 point last season. And Jordan has definitely made saves that have earned Everton points. So, it's a lot more difficult to have that conversation about Jordan Pickford because, as I can sit here and say, well, I think £60 million worth of players would have a better impact on Everton than Amadou Onana did, but would £60 million worth of players have a better impact than what Jordan Pickford does? I don't know. I really don't know. Obviously, given his age and given the financial position Everton in, it would be something that Everton would look at, and this is a completely, a completely made up situation because nobody has bid anywhere near that. Nobody's bid anything for any of our players as of yet, but nobody has even been rumoured or linked with bidding such high amounts for Jordan Pickford. But what I'm saying is, if a team does come to need a new goalkeeper this summer, maybe Man United, Tottenham, etc., Chelsea, who will probably buy one, then I'm sure Jordan Pickford's name will be on their lists, and I'm sure they'll be willing to offer big money for Jordan Pickford because he's England #1, as I said, and he has just signed a new contract at Everton. He's a high-valued member at Everton, member of the squad. Jordan has, however, spoken about his future and said he's got no real interest in moving. He's got no real interest in leaving Everton Football Club. He's happy here. His family is settled here. He enjoys playing here. He loves the connection he's got with the fans. He loves everything about being at Everton Football Club. And therefore he wouldn't be in a rush to move. So I don't actually think Jordan wants to leave the football club. However, as I said, if a stupidly big bid come in, there would need to be a conversation because of the position that Everton are in. But for me, I'd keep Jordan Pickford. I just think it's so easy to say, well, if you got a massive bid for him, you could just sell him because we could definitely go out and get this goalkeeper for £10 million or that goalkeeper for £15 million and they'd do the same job as Jordan Pickford would do. No, they wouldn't. They'd maybe do a decent job. They'd maybe do a good enough job to keep us in the Premier League as long as the defenders are good enough or the midfield is good enough or the forwards are good enough. But as we've seen in the last 2 seasons, our forwards haven't been good enough, our midfield haven't been good enough, and for large parts of that, our defence haven't been good enough either. So we have relied on Jordan Pickford being good enough. So, it's a bit more difficult, I think, than just saying, yeah, you could go out and get a £20 million keeper that'd do the same job. I don't think so. I really, really think Jordan Pickford is special, and I do think he's one of the best in the world. So for me, I would keep him. Again, I think it's a massive, massive risk to lose somebody like Jordan Pickford, a goalkeeper as good as that, with the risk of not being able to replace him. For example, I've seen a couple of people saying, well, you just go out and get Dean Henderson, or you just go out and get X, Y, and Z. Dean Henderson doesn't make the save against Wolves in the 91st minute. Dean Henderson doesn't make that save against Bournemouth, that ultimately kept us in the Premier League. Dean Henderson doesn't make the saves against Chelsea the season before that kept us in the Premier League. So, yeah. For me, Jordan is a keep all day long. Next then, Andy Lonergan. Oh, this is where it gets troublesome, doesn't it? Yeah. Never played a game in an Everton shirt. Certainly not a competitive game in an Everton shirt. Probably never will play a competitive game in an Everton shirt. As of now, he's on number 2. Because we've just lost Asmir Begovic, of course. But, yeah. Again, keep, sell, loan. I don't really think any decision as much of an impact on the future of the football club. I'd probably say keep, because Andy Lonergan sort of strikes me as the type of character that is well liked at the football club, is well respected at the football club, is, ultimately playing his role, having his part to play, and some people will say that part is having the best job in the world of being a number 3 goalkeeper and being paid thousands of pounds a week to effectively just watch the game every week like we do. But, he still ultimately has to play his part. He still has to train. He still has to help the young players out. He still has to help Jordan Pickford out. I'm sure Jordan's getting a lot of guidance from him as well. So, given we've just lost Asmir Begovic, I don't think it would be too much of a strain on the football club to keep Andy Lonergan. So, yeah, I'd say keep Andy Lonergan. João Virginia then, I'm going to say sell. Look, I know some people like João Virginia and like the idea that he's a young goalkeeper and that he is, he's somebody that potentially could be a one for the future. He's 23 years old now. I think if he was going to be given a run in Everton's first team, he would have more than likely had been given that. Obviously, the Jordan Pickford being ahead of him is maybe an argument to that point, but we've never really seen him go out to the Championship or be loaned to any other Premier League club and do well. We've seen little stints, but he's never really gone and done a fantastic job there. And yeah, I think if he is to stay at Everton, he's only going to be our number 2. And for the 23-year-old goalkeeper, you could maybe get a little bit of money back for him, maybe a couple of million quid from somebody because of his age. And then, obviously we can go out and reinvest that elsewhere. I do think Everton will be looking for another goalkeeper this summer anyway. Even if it is just somebody to come in and be a number 2, so that further pushes João Virginia down the pecking order again. So yeah, if we were to get a bid for him, a couple of £1 million, I'd have absolutely no issue with selling him. As the Blues said, he went to Reading a couple of years ago, but he did struggle massively there. And yeah, at 23 years old, if you're not able to perform consistently well in at least the Championship, then you've probably got absolutely no future at Everton anyway. So he's just there to warm a seat on the bench. So yeah, I'd sell if we of course receive the right price. Into the defenders then, James Tarkowski, keep. I think if you were to give me the Everton squad list for next season and a probability percentage next to each player on how probable they are to stay at Everton Football Club into the next season, past this transfer window, I think James Tarkowski would be in the high 90s. Obviously, as we mentioned in the seasonal player ratings, a fairly decent season, not unbelievable, and had his moments, had his times when he struggled and he found it a little bit difficult because of the form that we were in or just the situation that we were in. I think everybody struggled at one point, but he was the only outfield player in the Premier League to have played every single minute. He obviously played every single minute of the Premier League campaign, and I think for the majority of that campaign, he done really well. Obviously, we had a multiple different centre-back partnerships, one with Connor Cody, one with Yerry Mina, one with Michael Keane as well, and again, that's never easy when you're a centre-half and you're constantly having to change a game because you're constantly having the person who's playing next to you chopping and changing because of managerial decisions, but he was the one constant. I can't see Everton being under much pressure in this summer to sell him, and by much pressure I mean I can't imagine there to be many teams that are overly excited on the idea of trying to buy James Tarkowski, and that's no disrespect to James Tarkowski. He's 30 years old, and I think a lot of clubs will look at him as a centre-back that has barely just survived relegation. Obviously he's much more than that and he's much better than that, but we watch him every week and other people don't. So yeah, again, I think James Tarkowski will remain at the football club, and I think that would be absolutely the right decision. Whether or not he has as much of an impact next season in the sense of playing, every single minute of every single game, we'll wait and see. But I'm pretty confident in betting that James Tarkowski will be an Everton player next season, barring somebody stupid like Real Madrid or Manchester City coming in for him, which has happened before. It's happened before, but no, I'm fairly confident James Tarkowski will be at Everton, and I think that's the right decision. I would keep him. Nathan Patterson then, contracted to June 2027. I'm going to say keep. Again, fairly difficult first full season in the Premier League for Nathan Patterson. Obviously, he joined in the January the season before and never really got much game time under Frank Lampard towards the back end of that season. I don't think Frank particularly trusted him because of his age and because of his inexperience and because of the position that we were in. Obviously, he had a lot more football this season, stayed in the team until he picked up an injury, and then his season of course was absolutely ruined by injuries, 2 or 3 big injuries which kept him out for long periods of time. When he was fit, when he was on the pitch, as I said in the player ratings, he started the season really well. He got his injury, come back, he didn't quite seem the same player. He struggled massively for form. He even had a point where he was taken out of the team based upon his form. He then picked up another injury, he then come back again, a couple of games in, and he got another injury at the end of the season. So I would keep him. I certainly would be on the lookout for a right back a number one right back, because I just don't think we can go into another season relying on a 30-odd-year-old Seamus Coleman, who we still don't know whether or not he'll be here because his contractual situation is up in the air, and a young lad who, A, is massively inexperienced as it is, but B, is, at the moment, although it's not his fault at the moment, he is he's finding himself a little bit of a problem with long-term injuries, and again, I don't want to sit here and say he's injury prone and that's all he'll ever be, etc., but he had 3 big injuries last season, and let's not forget he'd been injured the season before as well. So yeah, hopefully that was just a bad season in terms of injuries for Nathan Patterson, and hopefully he comes back next season and he's fully fit. And as I said, if we get the Nathan Patterson that we got at the start of last season for 2/3 of next season, then I'll be happy, with him starting every week and obviously staying at the football club. But I do think Everton should be on the lookout for another right back. I do. I think Everton should be on the lookout for both full-back positions. But yeah, I would keep him. I don't think loaning him makes any sense, and selling him, I think, is not a necessity at this moment. So yeah, I would keep him. Next, then we have Mason Holgate. Sell all day long. I will drive him to wherever he is going, or I will drive him to the airport if it's abroad. I don't even think there's a need to sit here and slate Mason Holgate at this point, or have a go at him, or dig at him, or sit here and talk for 10-15 minutes about how crap he is. The reality of the situation is he's not a very good footballer whatsoever. He is constantly prone to making mistakes, he's constantly prone to lapses of concentration, and he's constantly prone to losing his head in moments that we really don't need him to lose his head in. He is, for me, a championship player at best. And that's why, since he has been at Everton Football Club in the last couple of years, when he's been given opportunities, he has shown that. And that's why Everton ultimately have been in the position that we have been in. He's contracted until next summer. The summer after, June 2025. And yeah, he's one of them that you look at Everton's financial position and financial situation this season, and you think, right, okay, we are going to need as much money as we can possibly get our hands on. And that means that if we receive a bid for somebody like Mason Holgate or Michael Keane, we just have to take it, because these players simply aren't good enough. And certainly Mason Holgate. Michael Keane, I think, is a bit more difficult because he has been in and around the first team more, especially under Sean Dyche. But in terms of Mason, if you can get anything, 5 million, 6 million quid for him, he's still not a bad age. He's obviously not young by any sense of the imagination. Let me just have a look at how old he is. 26 years old, so still relatively in and around his prime of his career, which tells you just how good he is as a footballer. But yeah, I'd be selling him all day. I think a loan doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I think if Everton keep Mason Holgate this summer, it's because simply nobody wants him. I can't see Everton rejecting a bid for Mason Holgate. I can't. I just simply can't. Michael Keane then. Again, difficult one, because it's easy to sit here and say sell. And I would sell Michael Keane, by the way. I would sell Michael Keane. If Everton got a relatively decent bid for him, which I believe we can or could, then I would sell him. I'd have no problem selling him. The problem with that being is that it would be leaving us with Ben Godfrey and James Tarkowski as our only two centre-halves. And obviously Ben Godfrey is getting a habit of being a little bit injury-prone at the moment as well. So, again, I'm not basing this on the auspices that Everton don't sign anybody this summer. And what I mean by that is, this video, of course, is based on the assumption that Everton will go out and replace these players if they sell them. So, if Michael Keane was to leave, I'm assuming that Everton would go out and buy a centre-back, because they would have to. They simply couldn't afford not to, because they've lost Conor Cody and Yerry Mina. So, yeah, sell for me, Michael Keane. Again, I just don't think there's any need to really sit here and take digs at him. I don't think there's any real need to sit here and have a go at him or scream and shout about him. he is what he is. And what he is a not very good, not very reliable central defender. Now, going forward, he's never really let Everton down. You know, he scored in that game against Crystal Palace, you know, a couple of seasons ago, which obviously kept Everton in the Premier League. He scored a rocket against Tottenham this season, which was a massive, massive point. He got the assist in the game against Wolves, which was huge as well. Going forward, he's definitely, he's definitely got a point to prove. But as a central defender, and that's what he is, and if he was to stay at Everton, that's what he would be staying at Everton as. He's just not good enough. He's just not good enough. He's not reliable enough. You know, he had a stint in the team this season, a fair stint in the team as well, by the way, not just a couple of games. And then he was taken out. He was in there for 10 games and we conceded 20 goals. And, you know, a lot of those goals were at his fault, his area, his man, you know, his responsibility, and we conceded. So, yeah, again, I do genuinely think, you know, we could get some decent money for Michael Keane. I think you could get upwards of 10 million quid. And I would have no issue with doing that. As I said, you know, the Blues makes a good point. As I look forward to someone taking this video very literally and saying, yeah, Cam, but you said you'd sell them all. And if you come to me now and said, Cam, Everton haven't bought anybody yet, but there's a £5 million bid for Mason Holgate and there's a £15 million bid for Michael Keane, I'd take them both. And I'd use the 20 million to go and get another central defender and maybe a central midfielder. I would take the money now. I really would. So, yeah, again, I'd sell Michael Keane. Again, alone at this stage in his career makes absolutely no sense. And similar to Mason Holgate, I think if he stays at Everton Football Club, it's on the basis that nobody wants him. I don't think it's because Everton are desperate to keep him and have rejected all sorts of bids. Next then, Vitaly Mykolenko. Obviously contracted to 2026. Again, joined in the same window that Nathan Patterson joined in. I would keep Vitaly Mykolenko. I've said numerous times before on this channel, and I will say it again. For me, Vitaly Mykolenko is not a great left back. He isn't a great left back, and he probably is a championship level left back. The reality of the situation is Everton do not have another left back. We had Ruben Vinagre on loan this season, who of course didn't play football at all for us. And then at the end of the season, when Vinagre was injured and Mykolenko was injured, we had to rely on Dwight McNeil to go there and fill in that position. Similar to Nathan Patterson, I would be in the market for another left back. I think it'd be important for Everton to go out and try and bring in somebody else. I think it'd be important for Everton to try and go out and certainly keep our eyes open for, you know, ultimately potential players in that position to come in and you know, take up that number one spot, because I don't think at this moment Vitaly Mykolenko was good enough to be the number one. However, selling him would just cause a bigger problem, because it would mean we would have to then go out and buy a number one and B a number two. Whereas now, I think if you can go out and buy a number one left back, or at least somebody that can come in and give a little bit more than Vitaly does, then Vitaly Mykolenko could be the number two. And maybe, you know, that will give him a little bit of motivation to improve or to work harder or to, you know, to battle a little bit more to try and regain that space as number one. How realistic is that? Listen, it's unrealistic that Everton go out and buy two strikers, a midfielder, a central defender, a left back and a right back in the summer. It's unrealistic. So this is probably not going to happen, and we probably will see Vitaly Mykolenko as Everton's number one next season. And as I said, I would keep him at the football club, but I am worried because I just don't particularly think he's a very good player. But I would keep him because I think if we went out and bought another left back, I'd have no problem with Mykolenko becoming the number two. Ben Godfrey, again, bit of a similar situation really to, you know, the Mykolenko one. I think Everton have to keep Ben Godfrey. Now, don't get me wrong, if we're to get a bid for him, I don't think it's as desperate as the Mason Holgate of literally, if you offer us a packet of crisp and £15, we'll take it. I think Ben Godfrey would need more of an actual decent amount of money, purely for a couple of reasons. One, his age. He's still very young, and he's still got a lot of learning to do, but he's still got a lot of growing to do. B, his position in this current Everton setup. As I said, he probably is now one of our two starting centre-backs, isn't he? Because, obviously Cody's gone, Mina's gone, you've got Tarkowski there. Who would you rather have, Keane, Godfrey or Holgate starting? Personally, I'd rather Godfrey than any of them, and Godfrey isn't great, that's saying something. And C, he cost us a fair bit of money, so I don't think Everton would be in a position, as did Michael Keane, of course, but Michael Keane's a lot older, and I think there's a lot less value in Michael Keane than what there is Ben Godfrey. So again, if Everton were to receive a £25 million bid for Ben Godfrey, which is very unrealistic and highly unlikely to happen, then you'd have to look at that, and you'd have to certainly analyse that, and probably take it. But how likely is that to happen? Quite unlikely. So for me, I think Everton will be keeping Ben Godfrey this summer. I've got no big issue with it. Again, is he great? No. Would I be confident if he started every game next season? No, I'd still like Everton to go out and buy another centre back. But I think, I think keeping Ben Godfrey would probably be a sensible decision. Next then, Seamus Coleman. I'd keep him. I'd give him another contract for another season. Again, I think his leadership, I think his knowledge of the football club, I think his ability to be able to pass on those sorts of models and what it means to be an Everton player and what it means to represent this football club to some of the young lads and some of the new lads that will come in, I think is important. And I just can't sit here and accept that Seamus Coleman's last game for Everton will have been in a relegation battle in which he was stretchered off. I just can't accept it. I don't think there'll be many Evertonians that would have a problem with keeping Seamus for another season. Some people will say, oh, well, it's wages and it's sentimental reasons. I don't actually think it is sentimental reasons, to be honest. I'd have a fit Seamus Coleman in this Everton team over a fit Nathan Patterson at this moment. I would. And that might change, of course, because Nathan Patterson will improve and he's young and he's quicker and he's got more stamina, etc., etc. But towards the back end of the season, we needed Seamus Coleman more than we needed Nathan Patterson. And Seamus, I thought, was excellent last season. I thought he stood up. I thought he was counted. And I thought it was, for the most part, a really solid season in terms of his performances. His goal against Leeds was fantastic. And generally, I thought his performances were really, really good throughout the whole season. So, yeah, I'd be keeping Seamus Coleman for another season. And then Jared Branthwaite, keep. Yeah. I think there's only two options for Jared Branthwaite. I think you either keep him or you sell him. I don't think another loan makes any sense whatsoever. Again, there will be a market for him. A young, up-and-coming centre-back who's played in Europe, who's just had a decent season in one of the top sides in the Dutch league. He is 20 years old, so he's obviously still got a lot of time ahead of him, a lot of room to improve. He's played in the Premier League before as well and done okay. He scored the Premier League goal at Stamford Bridge. There will definitely be a market for Jared Branthwaite. And again, if Everton would offer £30 million for Jared Branthwaite, I'll be honest, I'd sell him, because there's no guarantee that he'd be able to do what he's done in the Netherlands in the Premier League. But that figure is inflated massively, and Everton are very unlikely to be offered that. Would probably be only offered somewhere between 15 and 20. And I think for that money, it's probably it's probably a risk worth taking for Everton. Keeping him at the football club, giving him that opportunity next season. That's the thing for me with Jared Branthwaite. If he stays at Everton, he's got to play next season. He's got to be one of those two starting Premier League players. Premier League centre-back, next to James Tarkowski. He can't stay at the football club and be the number 3 and therefore spend most of the season on the bench. He can't be at the football club and come in for 1 week, out for another, then Michael Keane goes in for 10 games, then Branthwaite might get a couple of games. We can't do that, because we'd be better selling him and having that money. If he stays, for me, he has to be given the opportunity for at least having the first 10, 15 games of next season and seeing how he does. And if he impresses and he does well, then you keep him in there. If he doesn't impress and he doesn't do well, then you take him out and you make the decision of maybe he isn't ready to play in the Premier League. So then there's a decision to be made in January then. But I think if he stays this summer, which I think 99% of Evertonians would want him to, and I want him to as well because I think he's really talented, then I just think he has to start. I don't think he can stay and not play, given he's just had a really good time out on loan. He's played European football. As I said, he's already played Premier League football. And I think for Jared as well, I don't really think he'd have an issue coming back to Everton and staying at Everton. But if you were to say to him, right, you're going back to Everton, but you are, you're going to sit on the bench every week, I think that's where he'd have a problem. I think that's where he'd have a problem. Also, loaning him out again, does that make much sense? Let's be honest, if you were loaning him out in England, it would be to a championship club. Is the level in the championship better than what it is over in the Netherlands? I don't think so, given he's played in Europe as well. You're not going to loan him to a Premier League club because you may as well be playing for Everton. So, yeah, I think that's where I stand with Jared Branthwaite. If you keep him, and, as I said, most Evertonians, I think, would want to keep him, then he has to be, well, I say one of those starting centre-backs. He has to be the other starting centre-back because one is going to be James Tarkowski next season. So, yeah, there you go. Into the midfielders then, Dwight McNeil, keep. For me, one of Everton's player of the seasons this season. Obviously, I think Jordan Pickford wins it, and that's probably fair. But certainly, Dwight McNeil won the young player of the season. Massively improved under Sean Dyche. Some big performances towards the end of the season. Scored 7 goals, which is the most of any Everton player. And again, I think he's shown that he is deserving of certainly more opportunities in this Everton team. His efforts and work rate and desire and commitment and defensive commitment towards the end of the season was massive. Played left back as well at times for the first time in his career. He stays for me. There's absolutely no argument about that one. Amadou Onana. Interesting. If you were to ask me what I think will happen, I don't think Amadou Onana will be an Everton player next season. I don't. I think somebody like Chelsea or Arsenal will miss out on maybe their first target or second target, and they will make a big bid for Amadou Onana on the basis that he's probably a similar mould and a similar stature to what they're looking for. And as I said in one of the previous videos, I can't remember which one it was, if Everton were to receive 60 million quid for Amadou Onana, which, and I'm not just plucking that figure out my arse, by the way, that's a figure that has been, rumoured and reported across social media for the for the last couple of months of the season. I would sell him for 60 million quid. I would. Now, Amadou Onana might go on and be a 90, 100 million pound footballer in the next 2 seasons, and you might look at me and go, Cam, you're a knobhead, you said you'd sell him for 60 million quid. The reality is Everton are skint at the moment. Let's have it right. Everton are skint. We've got very little money to mess with, and we've just come off the back of our second consecutive relegation battle on the bounce. £60 million now is more important to Everton than what £100 million would be in 4 or 5 years' time. And that isn't even a guaranteed £100 million because he's not even guaranteed to reach those levels. So, if we are to receive a big bid for Amadou Onana, which is being reported and mightn't be the case because, as I said, it might just be an inflated sort of figure in the newspapers to try and get people to click and read the articles. But if we were to receive that money, I would sell him. I would, because it's very simple for me. I look at this in a very simple way. I'm autistic, so I look at it in a very autistic way. Let's say Everton were offered 60 million quid for Amadou Onana. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Now, obviously, this is on the basis that Everton recruit well and spend that money well and don't blow it up the wall like we have done in previous seasons, which again isn't a guarantee. But if Everton recruit well, £60 million worth of players likely to have more of an impact next season than what Amadou Onana has based on what we've just watched for the last season. I think it is. I think it is. And it's not a guarantee in football. Of course it's not. But I think it's a likelihood. So, yeah, again, if we don't receive that money and somebody only offers 20 million or 25 million, then I wouldn't be in a rush to get him out the door. I wouldn't. I'd have no problem with Everton keeping him next season if you know, nobody takes the bait. I think he's showed talent last season. I think he showed promise. I think his problem is he's still very, very young. He's not had a lot of professional experience under his belt even before he comes to Everton. And as well as that, ultimately he's in a new league, he's in a new country, he's in a new environment. It's tough. It is. It's tough for players, and again, it was always going to take him time to settle. It was always going to take him time to, you know, settle into the football club and the Premier League and stuff. So yeah, I'd have no issue keeping him. But if we are to receive a stupidly high bid, I think Everton would be silly to not sell. Abdoulaye Doucouré, keep, of course, just signed a new contract. Or just extended his current contract, by a season, should I say. Yeah, again, for me, I think Abdoulaye Doucouré showed in the last 2-3 months of the season that he is a valuable member of this squad. He's ultimately somebody that steps up in big games, and for a player who in January was literally on the brink of joining Fulham, and you know was sat on, you know, balls in Goodison Park at half-time of games, looking like he wasn't interested and he didn't want to be here. Considering he went from that to scoring the goal that kept us in the Premier League in May, you know, scoring a brace against Brighton in a massive win, and various other goals and assists and involvements in other games, I think it just shows that he had a big impact on you know, Everton's survival and on how Everton performed towards the end of the season. And yeah, again, he's staying because he signed that extension, or that extension has been activated, should I say. But yeah, I would have had him staying anyway, even if it wasn't for that. Next, Alex Iwobi. Again, I think a decision needs to be made on Alex Iwobi. Ultimately, he's out of contract next season, so next summer. So the decision this summer is he either gets a new contract, or B, he gets sold. Because if he doesn't, he will walk out the door for free. Again, another player who maybe is slightly underappreciated at Everton because of his lack of goals. You know, assists, and I think he got the most assists for Everton this season. Yeah, creatively, he obviously creates a lot. And again, you could say, well, if we had a finisher, if we had a top goal scorer, if we had somebody that you could rely on every week, then Alex Iwobi would have a lot more assists and he'd look a lot better on the stats. Ultimately, again, as I said, a decision needs to be made. He either needs to sign a new contract, which is a financial decision then for the football club. Can they afford to give Alex Iwobi his current wage for another 2-3 seasons? Maybe the club say, listen, you know, we can only give you a pay rise of a couple of £1,000, or even you'll stay on the same money, but we want you to be a part of the future, and we want you to ultimately stay at the football club. And then that's up to Alex Iwobi whether or not he signs that. Alex Iwobi might say, no, I want a pay rise of 40 grand a week, and Everton might go, well, we can't afford to give you that, so he leaves the football club. I've got a feeling he will stay and he will sign a new deal. I can't imagine there to be many teams knocking on the door. A little bit like how I mentioned with James Tarkowski. Although he's a valuable member of Everton's squad and Everton's team, I can't really imagine many teams will have been looking at Alex Iwobi this season and going, yeah, do you know what? We'll have him. Yeah, if he was on a free next summer, then obviously somebody will take a punt on him, probably somebody like Crystal Palace or something. But for what Everton would probably want 15-20 million quid at least for him, I can't see many teams really wanting to take that hit. So I actually do think he will stay at Everton. However, a decision needs to be made. He either signs a new contract or he leaves the football club this summer. Dele Alli, sell. Yeah. Again, Everton aren't really in a financial position to keep Dele Alli. If he plays another few games, I think we owe Tottenham 10 million quid or something, and that just isn't ideal in the position that we're in. Yeah, as much as people might want to think or might want to, hope that there's a future for Dele Alli at Everton, and he might come back and he might work under Dyche and this, that, and the other. It's never happening. It's never happening. And any bid of any type of money that Everton get, I'd be selling straight away for Dele. Andre Gomez, sell. Similarly, I just don't think he's got a future at Everton Football Club. Again, can't see him coming back and getting in this team. He's another year older. We already knew he wasn't quick enough. He wasn't agile enough to play in this league. Decent season in France, so maybe we'll get a bid there from Lille, who might look to make that permanent. And again, he's somebody that if we got a £5 million bid for, or £4 million, 5 or 10 million quid bid for, I'd take it all day long. Jean-Philippe Gbamin, sell. I think he's already said he won't be returning to Everton Football Club anyway, or his agent has. We probably won't get anything for him, but I can't see him ever wearing an Everton shirt ever again. Not much to say about him. His Everton career has been an absolute disaster, riddled with injuries, and there's not much else to say, is there? Tom Davies, obviously out of contract this summer. Still yet to hear whether or not he will be signing a new contract. I'm sure we'll know a lot more about this situation when Everton release the retained list for players leaving the football club this summer. Again, I don't know. I feel like whichever way you go with this, you know, there's going to be people that are disagreeing with you. There'll be people saying he's a good squad player and we should keep him, to be a member of the squad and to sort of fill a space. And there'll be other people saying, why bother doing that? He's not very good. He's shown he's not very good. Allow him to leave. I suppose I wouldn't really be asked either way, I wouldn't, because even if he does sign a new contract, he's not going to be on a lot of money, and he's not going to play an awful lot next season, or in any of the seasons that he's, at the football club for. He literally is just another name, and literally is just another, another player on the squad list. So, yeah. Again, on the auspices that if we're guaranteed to bring somebody in to fill his space, then I'd have no problem with him leaving. But if we can't do that because of finances and needing to add in other areas, then maybe him signing a new deal wouldn't be too bad. Don't come for me. Garner, Gay, I'd keep. Again, I do think Everton have to be moving on and planning for the future without a Garner Gay, because obviously he's getting old now, and he wasn't unbelievable last season. He done well in parts, but he also had some games where he made a few mistakes. But yeah, I'd keep him. I'd keep him. Again, I don't think we can go through this whole get rid of everyone, nobody's good enough, because although it might be true, it's not realistic. And yeah, I just think I just can't see him leaving Everton Football Club this summer. I think he'd be high on the probability list as well. And James Garner, keep, absolutely, 110%. 110%. I think he's got a real big future ahead of him. I thought he was absolutely outstanding at right wing back against Bournemouth on the final day of the season. I'd love to see him play more in his natural position in midfield, and maybe if Onana is to leave, we'll see that a lot more. But yeah, I'd be keeping him without a shadow of a doubt. Absolutely without a shadow of a doubt. Onto the forwards then. Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Again, I'm not really bothered. I'll be honest. I'm going to do a video over the next few days or so. Obviously, after we've done our season review video, which will be out tomorrow, by the way, live stream, season review live stream. So maybe on Friday, I'll do a stream about 5 things that Everton must do this summer, and I'll let you into a little secret. One of those things is replace Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and that's not me saying Everton absolutely must sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin, because I don't think Everton would get much money for him at this stage, given his injuries. But what Everton simply have to do is go out and buy a starting striker, and somebody that we know is going to play 99% of the games next season, and is going to be fit for 99% of the games next season, and is going to be able to score us goals and win us games. Again, if Everton got a decent bid for Dom, I would sell him. Of course I would, because he's his injuries have completely wrecked his Everton career. And if you were to get 15 million quid for him, which you won't, because nobody would be silly enough to pay that for somebody like Dom, given his injuries, then I would take it. But at the moment, I think Dom sort of falls into the category of Vitaly Mykolenko in the sense that I've got no problem with him staying, but he can't be the number one. Not because he's not good enough, because he is good enough, and on his day, he's absolutely fantastic. He showed that towards the back end of the season before he got another injury. But because of that, because his injuries and his unreliability have, Everton's persistence on Dominic Calvert-Lewin's unreliability in the last 2 seasons is one of the big reasons why we are in the position that we are. And yeah, we can't afford to do that again. So I think Everton will end up keeping him, but Everton have got to replace him. It's as simple as that. Demarai Gray, I'd have no issue selling him, I'd be honest. If a decent bid come in, I'd have no issue selling him. I think he probably will end up staying, because I think Everton will more than likely only sell one player in that forward position, and I think it'll be Neal Maupay. I don't think we'll lose 2, because that means we almost then need to buy 4, and we haven't got the finances or the tools to do that. So yeah, I think he'll end up staying. Again, a decent bid. I'd have no problem with him leaving, because I just don't think he's very good, but I do think he'll end up staying. Andros Townsend, contract's up this summer. He's been injured for the entirety of this season and the majority of the season before. I can't see him being given a new contract. I think he'll leave the football club. Neal Maupay, sell all day long. It's been a complete disaster. Hasn't worked out. 1 Premier League goal all season. Doesn't fit into the style or the system or whatever Sean Dyche wants to do with Everton. He doesn't fit in. He didn't fit into Frank Lampard's either. Apparently he is on a list of top 25 players that are most similar to Karim Benzema in world football, and he's actually quite high up on that list, which is mad. I'll be honest, I don't see how he is similar in the slightest to Karim Benzema. Is it because he's French? Is that it? I don't know. I can't see any other reasons why he could be even mentioned in the same sentence as Karim Benzema. But there you go. I'd sell him. Tom Cannon, I think I'd loan him out. I get the thing of, giving youth a chance and giving opportunities to these players, but I don't think he's going to get that this season. Not necessarily because he's not good enough, but just because I think he's more likely to go back out on loan. Maybe Preston again. I think Preston spoke about him today, saying that they'd love him back on loan. So yeah, I'd send him back on loan. And then Ellis Sims, if a decent bid come in, I would sell. Will it get done? Probably not. Will it happen? Probably not. But how likely is he to be a massive member of this team next season? I don't know. And I almost, again, I'm a little bit undecided on Sims, because I don't think he's been given a fair opportunity in the Premier League to really be able to look at and go, he is not good enough. Scored against Chelsea, which was a massive goal in a massive moment. But if he's not going to be given that chance, then you may as well sell him. There's no point in keeping him on if he's not going to be given that chance. Let's have a look through some of the younger players then. Obviously, you've got the likes of Lewis Gibson, Ryan Astley. I think they'll either stay at the club or probably more than likely go out on loan. Lewis Warrington, again, maybe another loan deal. Again, there's a lot of players in there. Dobbin, of course, is a name that, a lot of people will be thinking, can he play next season? Can he have an involvement? Again, I'm not quite sure. You probably sell loan, but every one of these young players, whether it be Dobbin, whether it be Tyler Onyango, whether it be Lewis Gibson, Lewis Warrington, they're all players that Everton should be open to selling if we get a decent bid. If Everton get a couple of £1 million bid here and there for any one of those players, and Sean Dyche looks at them and thinks, I can't see you being a first teamer in this Everton squad over the next 3 years, and we've got a bid of 2 or 3 million quid here for you, then we should take it, regardless of whether we want to see it happen or we think as fans it should happen. The manager's the best, knowledge in that area, and all the director of football, and they should be able to make that decision. But yeah, there you go. I was gonna do a buy section of this video, but I'll be honest, I haven't really had enough time to sit down and look at genuine realistic options for Everton. There's obviously been a lot of transfer rumours over the last couple of days, and we'll go through them in the next Toffees Today episode. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of Everton should buy videos over the course of the next 6-7 weeks. So yeah, we'll save them for them. But there you go. I'm going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like. If you are new to the channel, then please don't forget to subscribe as well. Massive thank you to everybody for watching live. I really appreciate it. If you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below, and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. But we'll be back with a Toffees Today episode very soon, and then obviously the full season review tomorrow as well. So look out for that. Big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.